You know, video games are going through this huge transformation right now. It's not just about getting the high score anymore. Games are becoming these really complex worlds, more powerful, more inclusive, and, believe it or not, way more human than ever before. So, let's dive in and see how.
And really, it all kicks off with the tech. I mean, generative AI is a complete game changer, no pun intended. Tools like this one from Roblox, they let creators build something as complex as a car just by typing a few words. Think about that. It's knocking down these huge technical walls, and that means a whole new wave of people can now get into game design.
So this huge leap in technology brings up a really fascinating question, right? We know AI can make games bigger, smarter, but can it make them more, well, human? Are these incredible new tools actually helping us tell stories that are more diverse, more empathetic?
Okay, so to get to the bottom of that, we're going to look at a few things. We'll touch on AI and this new type of player, dig into why representation is so important, see how characters are finally finding their voice, check out how games are talking about mental wellness, and then wrap up with the rise of cozy games.
All right, first up, AI and the new player. We're going to look at how this tech is really reshaping the virtual worlds we spend so much time in.
Just to give you a sense of the scale here, it's kind of insane. Take a look at the upcoming game Light No Fire. It uses generative AI to create a planet the size of, well, Earth. A whole planet. That's a world that would take a team of human artists centuries to build by hand. It's just a mind-boggling achievement. But, with that kind of power comes some very real concerns. On one hand, you've got the potential for job losses for human artists. And then there's this really big question about algorithmic bias. I mean, if an AI is just trained on all the stuff that already exists, whose stories and viewpoints is it going to favor? And maybe the biggest question of all, do we risk losing that unique handcrafted artistry that only a person can create?
And those questions about bias and artistry, they lead us right to the human element. It makes you ask, so who's actually making these games anyway? Let's take a look at the representation gap and why it matters so much.
When you look at the numbers, you see a pretty big imbalance. For a long time, the game industry has been mostly dominated by one demographic. We're talking about roughly 80% male and 60% white. And look, when one group is telling most of the stories, it just naturally ends up limiting the kinds of characters we meet and the worlds we get to explore.
This kind of imbalance can lead to problems like tokenism. You've probably seen it. It's when a character from an underrepresented group gets thrown in, but it feels, well, symbolic. They're often just a collection of stereotypes with no real depth, which ends up reinforcing the problem instead of fixing it.
So, what's the solution? Well, a big part of it is understanding this idea called intersectionality. It sounds complex, but the core idea is simple. Nobody is just one thing. Your identity is made up of all these overlapping parts. Your race, your gender, your class, and all those things intersect to shape your experience. Getting that right is absolutely key to creating characters that feel real.
And that idea of authenticity is a perfect segue to our next topic. Let's talk about how characters, specifically LGBTQ+ characters, have been finding their voice in games. Man, it has been a long journey. It really started with these pioneers back in 1989 with a game called Caper in the Castro, the first one we know of that focused on LGBT themes. Then, a huge moment in 2000. The Sims let players have same-sex relationships, a total game changer. And that progress has kept rolling, leading to these incredibly complex characters like Lev in The Last of Us Part 2, and even huge games like World of Warcraft finally adding properly inclusive character options.
And you can see the change so clearly in the writing itself. I mean, think about an early character like Birdo. The game manual literally said he thinks he is a girl. Now, contrast that with a modern character like Chris from Deltarune, who just uses they-them pronouns. It's not a plot point, it's just a fact. That shift from a kind of confused description to simple acceptance is just huge.
And this stuff really matters. It's not just pixels on a screen. For so many people, games like The Sims were one of the first safe places they had to explore who they really are. This comment from a player just says it all. It shows you how these virtual worlds can have a very real, very personal impact on helping people figure themselves out.
Okay, so this idea that games can impact our personal lives, that leads us to an even deeper part of the human experience. We're now seeing this huge shift toward games for wellness, games that are actually exploring mental health. But just like we saw with LGBTQ+ representation, the history here is complicated. A recent study found that while about 1 in 10 best-selling games featured mental illness,
A whopping 75% of those depictions were negative or just plain stereotypical. So clearly, there was a huge need for a better, more thoughtful way to handle it.
A real pioneer here was Depression Quest. It's a text-based game from 2013, and it was made by developers who had their own lived experience with depression. The whole point wasn't to be fun in the traditional sense. The goal was to build empathy, to let you experience, just for a little while, the kinds of choices and challenges someone with depression faces every single day. A more recent and really powerful example is Hellblade's Senua's Sacrifice. What's so amazing about this game is its deep commitment to getting it right. The creators worked hand in hand with neuroscientists and, this is the crucial part, with people who have actually experienced psychosis. The result is this intense sensory exploration of the condition. It's really a masterclass in how to handle these topics with real respect and depth.
So this focus on our inner worlds, on empathy and wellness, it brings us perfectly to our last section. Let's talk about the comfort of cozy games, a genre that's really about a much bigger cultural shift.
So what exactly is a cozy game? Well, at its heart, it's all about comfort. These are games built from the ground up to be low stress. They're not about competition. They're about positive, wholesome experiences. You know, they're designed to give you that warm, fuzzy feeling. A nice, relaxing escape from, well, from everything else. And you definitely know the big ones, right? Games like Stardew Valley. And of course, Animal Crossing New Horizons became this massive global phenomenon back in March 2020, and it's no wonder why. At a time when we were all suddenly isolated, it gave us this vital sense of community, of connection, and just a little bit of calm. And believe me, this is not some small niche thing. Just look at TikTok. The hashtag cozy games has, wait for it, nearly 900 million views. That one number tells you everything you need to know about how huge this has become. It's a real movement. People aren't just logging on to win anymore. They're playing to relax, to connect, and to just take care of themselves. So let's tie this all together. What's the big picture here? You've got this incredible AI tech making it easier for more people to create games. At the same time, there's a growing push for diversity that's leading to more authentic, more human stories. Put it all together, and what do you get? Games are becoming this super important way to build empathy, and players are actively looking for that, for comfort, for connection, and for well-being. It's like games are evolving right alongside us, from just lines of code to something that reflects our own consciousness. And that leaves us with one big question to chew on. As these virtual worlds we build get more complex, more empathetic, and more human, how are they going to end up reshaping our actual reality?